and welcome to Narayana IAS. I am Pratik, your faculty for Daily News Analysis. Now students, today we are going to deviate from our daily tradition of discussing the Hindu and the Indian Express articles. Today we are going to focus whole and soul on the topic, the budget. So if you read today's The Hindu and the Indian Express, majority of the articles and topics are related to budget. And that's the reason I thought to provide a comprehensive analysis of the budget. So, as I told you, today we are going to discuss only and only about the budget 24-25, right? So, why do we understand budget or why should we read budget is a question that we all need to understand. No doubt it is important from the exam's perspective, but understanding and knowing budget is also important for every responsible citizen of our country. Why? Because students, every citizen of our country is contributing to the state's exchequer. We are paying taxes, direct, indirect taxes to the government. So we are paying our money to the government. So we need to know the areas where the government is spending our money. So in order to hold the government accountable, we need to understand the areas where the government is spending. We need to understand the transparency in spending, and then only we can hold the government accountable during elections. And that's the reason we need to understand budget. Budget affects your day-to-day lives, right? That's the reason you need to understand and know budget very well. Again, from the exam's perspective, it is important from GS3 perspective, right? So, the economic growth and development, inclusive growth, employment, and government budgeting. Now, if you look at the previous question, there have been many questions asked in the UPSC examination. So, if you see, this previous question was asked on capital budget and the revenue budget. Then the second question is about the Transform, Energize and Clean India, which was a part of Union Budget 2015 to 18. Then there's a question on long-term capital gains tax and dividend distribution tax. There's a prelims question as well. The other question, vote on account and interim budget. There have been many questions asked in the UPSC examination, students. That's the reason this topic becomes extremely important for your UPSC examination. So let us try to understand this topic on budget so that you understand every dimension associated with budget. Trust me, students, once you go through this session, once you understand all the dimensions, you will be in a position to understand and analyze comprehensively the budget. So please stay tuned to today's lecture so that you understand each and every dimension and every priority of the government that the government is focusing on. Let us get started. But first and foremost, let us try to understand the basics of budget, because without understanding the basics of budget, I don't think that you'll be in a position to understand the areas the government of India is focusing as part of budget, right? So let us try to understand the basics of union budget first. Budget, the union budget, in the Indian constitution, it is referred to as annual financial statement. Now, this is mentioned in Article 112 of the Indian Constitution. Please remember that the word budget is not mentioned in the Indian Constitution. Very important point for your prelims examination. Then in the Ministry of Finance, this Department of Economic Affairs has the responsibility of preparing the budget. So to prepare the budget, it takes months. It's not that the budget is prepared in a matter of 1, 2, or let's say few days. No. It takes months to prepare the budget, and Department of Economic Affairs is the nodal agency which prepares the budget. What is the budget? It provides detailed account of the government's finance status. It informs citizens about the revenue generated and expenditure incurred by the government in the previous year. So in the previous year, for example, this is the budget 24-25. So in the financial year 23-24, how much money did the government earn and how much money did the government spend is something that is mentioned in the budget. Then it also projects the expected earnings, planned expenditures and borrowing needs for the upcoming financial year. So the budget is mentioning about the financial status of the previous year, how much money the government of India earned and the government of India did spend, and for the upcoming financial year, that is 24-25, what will be the financial status of our country, right? the amount that our country would be needing, and the money that the government will be needing for spending on different activities at the same time. And this financial year will be from April 1 to March 31. Right? Now, the union budget is presented on February 1. So, until 16, the union budget was presented on the last day of February. But from 16, it is presented on February 1. Why? Because the financial year kicks in from April 1. So, to complete all the formalities, the government needs time. That's the reason the government has preponed this date from last day of February to the first date of February. In 2017, students, the railway budget and the general budget was merged. So, since 92 years, the government of India used to release railway budget and general budget in a different way. But now, since 2017, the government of India has merged the railway budget and the general budget. Now, the reason why the railway and the general budget was merged is because back then, the railway budget used to constitute a major chunk of the revenue the government of India used to earn. But now, the proportion of profits the railways generating is marginal compared to the overall budget. That's the reason the government of India thought that it is important to merge railway and the general budget. The next, the union budget is divided into revenue budget and the capital budget. So, what is revenue and capital budget? So, this is revenue budget. Under revenue budget, we have revenue receipts and revenue expenditure. What is receipts? The amount or the money the government gets. Expenditure, the amount or the money the government spends. Now, under revenue receipts, we have tax and non-tax sources of revenue. Under tax, we have the income tax, GST, corporate tax, etc. Under non-tax, we have, for example, the government of India generates profits from few public sector institutions. Or let's say the amount the government of India collects through penalties, fines is something that will be deposited in the government's account. That is known as revenue receipts. Revenue expenditure. Now, for example, there are so many departments in our government. There's a lot of administration work. So, all the money the government of India needs to spend money on salaries, to look after the different departments, administration work, the government of India spends, and what the government of India spends is referred to as revenue expenditure. So, the administrative cost. Expenditure. This is revenue budget. So, revenue budget has two components: revenue receipts, the money incoming, revenue expenditure, the outgoing money. Then we also have capital budget. Now, under capital budget, again we have two components: capital receipts and the capital expenditure. Under capital receipts, we have, for example, the government of India takes loans through the issuance of bonds. So, this is referred to as capital receipts. The government of India taking loan. Alright? So, loans. Capital expenditure, the money the government of India spends to create assets. For example, the expenditure done on roads, railways, highways, etc. This is known as capital expenditure. So, here the budget contains both revenue budget as well as the capital budget. I hope you understood the difference between revenue budget and capital budget. Now, the government of India, whenever the government of India spends money or the outgoing money or the incoming money, for example, each and every individual has bank accounts. Similarly, the government of India, we have, let's say, for example, fixed account, saving account, current account. Similarly, the government of India also has three types of accounts. One is the Consolidated Fund of India, the Contingency Fund of India, and the public account, which means all the money the government earns or the government of India spends goes through these three accounts. Now, to understand what is consolidated, contingency, and public account, you need to refer to Indian polity, right? So, Now, economic survey. Now, economic survey is released a day prior or few days prior to the announcement of budget. So, this economic survey gives the overall picture of the economy of our country. The budget has two parts. Part A of the budget covers the macroeconomic aspects. That is, the government of India announces the government schemes, the priorities of the government, and the different sectors and the allocation of funds to different sectors. Part A. Part B deals with the finance bill. Finance bill is nothing but the taxation proposals, such as the income tax, corporate tax, direct taxes, indirect tax. There are two parts, Part A and Part B. So this is about the union budget in brief. I hope you understood few important points related to union budget. Now students, it is very, very important to understand the areas or the sectors from where the government of India makes money. So every rupee comes from where? This can be a question asked in the UPSC examination. They might ask you to arrange the areas through which we get the money in ascending or let's say descending order, right? For example, here if you see, every rupee comes from, the highest is the borrowings and other liabilities, right? So in order to reduce the deficit or in order to spend on the infrastructure assets, we need money. So we borrow the money, and the major portion or the major money that we get from is the borrowing. Second one is the income tax. First one, this is the second one. Third one is the GST and other taxes. The fourth one is the corporation taxes. The fifth one is the union excise duties. Sorry, the non-tax receipts, which is a part of revenue receipts, right? This is the fifth part, this is the sixth part, this is the seventh part, and this is the eighth part. So you do not have to mug up each and everything, but you need to have an overall idea of the money that we get, or the highest, or which area constitutes the highest percentage of India's revenue. Now, every rupee that we spend goes to these many areas. For example, the highest is in the state's share of taxes and duties. This is 21%, right? Followed by the interest payments, like we take money, we borrow the money from different banks as well as the foreign countries, and then in return we have to pay the interest payments. This is the second component. All right. Then we have defense subsidies. Then we have finance commission, the recommendation of finance commission, the centrally sponsored schemes where the government of India allocates funds to different schemes, right? The other expenditure, the central sector schemes wherein the government of India funds 100% to a project. So this is where every rupee goes. So you need to have a decent understanding of where the every rupee is coming from and where every rupee is going. And if you look at the different sectors, the highest or the sector where we spend the highest is the defense sector, followed by the rural development. Why? Because India is a agriculture, or for that matter, most of the population of a country resides in the villages. Agriculture, home affairs, education, IT, health, energy, social welfare, and commerce and industry. Right? Now, whenever the finance minister announces budget, apart from the speech of the finance minister, there are few important documents the government of India releases. The first is the documents that is mandated by the Constitution of India. So these are the three documents which the government of India has to present before the parliament. The first one is the annual financial statement, which outlines the expenditure, or which outlines the receipts and expenditure of the government of India. This is the first document. The second, demand for grants. Now, every ministry and every department under the ministry is in need of funds. So this demand is presented, demand from every ministry and department is presented in the form of demand for grants. And these demand for grants has to be voted in the Lok Sabha. Only once these demands are voted in the Lok Sabha, the ministry can spend the money or take the money from the government. Third one is the finance bill. Now, finance bill contains the government of India's proposals on taxes. the Government of India's proposals on taxes, that is the imposition of tax, the abolition of tax, the alteration of tax, the remission of tax. So finance bill deals with the taxation proposals. So every such finance bill is a money bill which deals with Article 110, that is related to money bill. Right? Again, this is part of Indian polity, but I've given a basic understanding or brief about the finance bill and the money bill. So these are the documents mandated by the this word is very, very important. UPSC plays with these kind of words. So these are the documents mandated by the Constitution. Second, now these are the documents mandated as per the Fiscal Responsibility and the Budget Management Act. So what is Fiscal Responsibility and the Budget Management Act? Now, the Government of India, in order to run the business, they need money. If they do not have money, they borrow the money from other institutions. But there's a limit to which the Government of India can borrow. Let's say, for example, in order to meet different needs of the different sectors, if the Government of India keeps borrowing the money from different sectors or different areas, then the successive government, let's say in 2029, we have Congress government. So that government will have to bear the burden and responsibility of the previous government. So there's a limit to which the Government of India can borrow the money, right? And under this FRBM Act, there are two documents. First one is the Macroeconomic Framework Statement. Now, this macroeconomic framework statements gives a clear picture of the economic environment. For example, it analyzes or gives projections of the GDP. It analyzes the balance of payment, the forex exchanges. It analyzes the export and import trade. It also analyzes the fiscal balance, right? That is how much money we are spending and how much money we are earning. And the second one we have is the medium-term fiscal policy fiscal policy strategy management. Now, this outlines the Government of India's fiscal strategy. For example, we have fiscal deficit. What is fiscal deficit? So, the difference between the money that we spend and the money that we earn is nothing but fiscal deficit. So, let's say, for example, you are spending 50 rupees and you are earning 20 rupees. So, the fiscal deficit would be 30 rupees. Revenue deficit, the revenue expenditure minus the revenue receipts. And in the primary deficit, we subtract fiscal deficit minus the interest payments. So the second document, it outlines the Government of India's fiscal strategy. That is how the Government of India is going to manage its fiscal deficit, right? So these are some of the documents the Government of India presents before the Parliament. One is as mandated as per the Constitution. The second one as per the Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management. And the third one, so these are some other documents the Government of India also presents, right? So this was about the basics about the budget. Again, also just let me give a brief understanding of the budget process. There are 6 stages of passing the budget. It is important for the government to pass the budget. If the budget does not get passed in the Parliament, it amounts that the Government of India is lacking the confidence in the Lok Sabha, which amounts to the defeat of the government. So first is the presentation of the budget. The Finance Minister presents the budget. Then both the houses, they discuss the budget for 3 to 4 days. Post that, the Speaker and the Vice President, the Chairman of Rajya Sabha, they adjourn the House. Now, once the House is adjourned, the standing committees, they scrutinize the individual minister's demand for grant. Now, the standing committee, they will scrutinize the demands of each and every ministry. And then, based on the report of the standing committees, both the houses will discuss on the reports as submitted by the standing committees. And the last 2 stages is appropriation, passing of the appropriation bill. Now, passing of the appropriation bill, which means now the Government of India or the Parliament is authorizing the government to withdraw the money from the Consolidated Fund of India. So, from appropriation bill, the Government of India is spending the money, which means the Parliament is authorizing the government. And with respect to finance bill, now the Parliament is authorizing the government to earn the money. That is, this is the incoming money and appropriation bill is the outgoing money. So here the Parliament is authorizing the appropriation, that is the outgoing money as well as the incoming money. So these are the 6 stages of the passage of, or the how the budget is passed in the parliament. So this was about the basics about the budget. Now students will understand the different areas or priorities the government of India has focused on in the budget 24-25. The objective was to boost Indian economy, right? So through this budget, we'll understand the priorities and the reforms as proposed in the budget, right? Now, which are the priorities the government of India has focused in the year 24-25? The first one, the productivity and resilience. The second, the employment and skilling. Third is the social justice. Fourth is the manufacturing and services. Fifth is the urban development. Sixth is the energy security, infrastructure, innovation, and next generation reforms. 9 dimensions the government of India has focused on. We will analyze each and every priority one by one, right? The first is the agriculture, right? Now, the government of India has allocated 1.52 lakh crore in the agriculture and the allied sectors. The purpose is to enhance the agriculture productivity, the sustainability of agriculture, and the farmer welfare. This is the purpose. That's the reason the government of India has invested 1.52 lakh crore. Now, in the agriculture sector, the government of India has introduced 109 high-yielding, climate-resilient varieties of 32 field and horticulture crops. Now, students, as we are facing the consequences of climate change, the crops are unable to withstand the consequences or the environmental challenges. And that's the reason the government of India has introduced this high-yielding, climate-resilient crop, so that these crops can withstand the environmental challenges or the climate change, right? And that's the reason the government of India has introduced this 109 high-yielding, climate-resilient varieties of 32 field and horticulture crops. Now, these crops will be in a position to withstand the devastating impact, or let's say the effects of climate change. This will help sustainable and increased agriculture output. So here we are actually meeting the needs of climate change. The second one is natural farming. Now, the government of India wants the farmers to adopt natural farming. It aims that 1 crore farmers should adopt natural farming over the next 2 years. Now, students, we all know that because the farmers are resorting to fertilizers and pesticides to enhance the agriculture output. But because of the increased usage of fertilizers and pesticide, not only the crop gets affected, but also the nutritive value of the soil gets affected. As a reason, the government of India wants the farmers to shift towards natural farming. And as a reason, the government of India has established 10,000 bio-input research centers. Now, these research centers will produce and distribute bio-fertilizer and bio-pesticide. So, the development of biofertilizers and biopesticides will help the farmers, one, to ensure agriculture productivity, and second, to enhance the livelihood opportunities and thus the income as well. The next is the digital public infrastructure for agriculture. Now, in collaboration, in partnership with the states, the digital public infrastructure will be implemented over the next 3 years. So, what is a digital public infrastructure? The purpose of digital public infrastructure is to modernize and digitize the agricultural process, which means this will help the farmers to access information and resources. Now, once the farmers will access or will get the benefit of accessing information and resources, this will help the farmers to understand the technologies and the techniques of farming methods. Why? Because now the farmers have the access to information and resources. This will help the farmers to understand where to invest and in which technology to invest, so that this will help the farmers to enhance, to increase the agriculture productivity and also the income. So their Jan Samartha based Kisan credit cards, the farmers will invest in better technologies and technique methods to boost the agriculture output. The next is the shrimp production and export. Now, given the number of people who are employed in the shrimp sector, the government of India has provided financing for shrimp farming, the production, processing technique, and the export capability. So, the objective is to export the shrimp products to different countries so that we also boost our foreign exchange reserves. And through NABARD, now NABARD, they have the expertise in the funding, right? Through the help of NABARD, the government of India is trying to finance the shrimp sector where considerable number of people are employed. The next is Atmanirbharta in oil seeds. Now, students, because of the geopolitical disruptions, be it the Israel-Hamas war, or let's say Ukraine-Russia war, or the attack of the Houthis on Red Sea, the supply chain gets affected. Now, when it comes to groundnut, soybean, sunflower, mustard, we import this oil from different countries. Now, because of these supply chain disruptions, the industries that are dependent on these oils get affected. This leads to inflation. And that's the reason in order to ensure a stable and secure supply chain, the government of India wants that the India should domestically manufacture. This word is very, very important. Domestically manufacture oil seeds in our country. Now, by domestically manufacturing the oil seeds, one, this will lead to job creation. Then the prices of essential goods would come down. Inflation would decrease. The government will get revenue. And as jobs will be created, there will be demand in the market, which will overall help in the economic growth of our country. So this was the first sector wherein the government of India has focused on these many areas. This is the first area. The second one is the employment and skilling. Now, around 1.48 lakh crore has been allocated for education, employment, and skill development. There are 5 schemes introduced to benefit 4.1 crore youth with an outlay of 2 lakh crores. And the government of India has divided this under 3 schemes: Scheme A, Scheme B, and Scheme C. The first scheme is for the first timers who are getting job for the first time. Now, what the government of India does is, for the first timers, the government of India will directly benefit or directly transfer the 1 month salary those who are entering the workforce for the first time. And this is expected to benefit 210 lakh youth. This will ease the transition from education to employment. This is Scheme A. Scheme B. This is pertaining to the manufacturing sector. The government of India has the objective to help the manufacturing sector by incentivizing manufacturing jobs. Now, incentivizing manufacturing jobs will help. 1, it will boost the industrial growth. This will lead to economic activity, which will be buzzing, and overall the economic growth enhances our groups, right? The next is all the sectors, not only manufacturing. This is employer focus scheme, which will add more employees in all the sectors. This will encourage companies to hire more number of people. Again, this is expected to incentivize the employment of 50 lakh people. So here the government of India is focusing on employment. The next is skilling scheme. Now students, given that we are living the 21st century where the technology has advanced with a rapid pace, it is very important that the workforce be skilled. If the workforce are not skilled, they would not get employment in the fast growing world. And that's the reason the government of India has introduced new centrally sponsored scheme for skilling in collaboration with states. Now the government of India aims to skill 20 lakh youth over 5 years. The skill that the government of India will provide will match the industry needs. Again, it is very important. Again, the students, they also get these skills in the education or in the colleges. But the skill that the colleges are providing, they're not meeting the industry standards. That's the reason the government of India is providing skills that matches the industry standards so that the employability of a candidate enhances. This is very, very important. The next is the government of India is also providing education loans of up to 10 lakh for higher education in domestic institutions. Now, this will help easy accessibility to higher education. For that, the government of India is also providing e-vouchers for interest subvention of 3%. What is interest subvention? Let's say, for example, the government of India has provided me a loan of 10 lakh and the government of India is charging 6% interest rate. Interest subvention means that the government of India says that I will partially take the burden of the interest. So here the interest subvention is 3%, which means of the 6%, the government of India will pay 3% and the rest 3% I need to pay. And this interest subvention will be in the form of e-vouchers, which will be added to the student's bank account directly. Right? So this will help the students to access higher education. So this was about the employment and skilling. The first one was the agriculture. The second one was the employment and skilling. The third one is about the human resource development and social justice. Now, under Purvodaya, the government of India aims to comprehensively develop the eastern states of a country: West, Bihar, Jharkhand, West Bengal, Odisha, and Andhra Pradesh. Now, if you see the different states of a country, especially the north versus south divide that we refer to, the southern states are relatively economically developed than the northern states or the eastern states. That's the reason the government of India wants to help the eastern states or the northern states so that we balance the economic or the regional development. There's a regional imbalance, so we want to fill the gap of this regional imbalance in our country by helping the northern and the eastern states so that these states focus on human resource development, infrastructure and economic development. How? By development of road connectivity projects including Patna Purnia Expressway, Buxar Bhagalpur Expressway and more with a total cost of 26,000 crore. Now students, by focusing on the highways or let's say the capital assets, the government of India will reduce the time. Let's say for example, the government of India is developing this Patna Purnia Expressway. Now this will reduce the cost, reduce the time, which means there will be seamless facilitation of people as well as goods. This will help the economy to grow. Then support for Andhra Pradesh. Now, as Andhra Pradesh or as Telangana, Andhra Pradesh was bifurcated into two states, Telangana and Andhra Pradesh. Now, Andhra Pradesh is in the process to build a new state or new capital for Andhra Pradesh. For this, the state of Andhra Pradesh need funds. So, 15,000 crore has been provided to the state of Andhra Pradesh. This includes the Polavaram irrigation project. Now, this Polavaram irrigation project has few objectives. One is to provide irrigation to around 3 lakh hectare land. Second, to provide drinking water to the nearby villages. Drinking water as well as to generate electricity, the hydroelectricity, right? As well as the government of India is building Visakhapatnam, Chennai, and Hyderabad Bengaluru industrial corridors. Now, by focusing on Vizag, Chennai, and Hyderabad Bengaluru industrial corridors, this will actually boost the industrial growth, leading to the overall economic growth, job opportunities, market demand, and overall economic growth of a country. Now, under tribal development, the government of India is focusing on Pradhan Mantri Janjatiya Unnat Gram Abhiyan Yojana. Now, this will actually help the tribals to have the access of essentials like education and health. Now, by having easy access to education and health, this will help the tribals to improve the socio-economic conditions of the people who reside in the tribal dominated villages. This is for the tribal development. The next is the northeastern region. Now, one of the aims of the government of India is to integrate the people of northeast with the rest of India. Now, for that, the government of India is expanding the Indian Post Payment Bank branches in the northeastern region. How? By building financial infrastructure in the northeast, by expanding the branches of the banks in northeast, right? So these are the ways through which the government of India is trying to integrate the northeastern region with the mainland India. So the third one was the human resource development and the social justice. The fourth one is the manufacturing and services. Under manufacturing, the government of India has given comprehensive package or provided comprehensive package and different type of benefits to the MSME sector. What is MSME? Micro, small and medium enterprises. Now students, the micro, small and medium enterprises, they are very, very important for our country. They contribute significantly to India's economy. Why? Because one, they contribute 30% of India's overall GDP. Of the total exports that India exports to different countries, 45% of the contribution comes from the MSME sector. And it provides jobs to 120 million people. This is how important the MSME sector of our country is. So the MSME sector is the backbone of Indian economy. If the MSME sector crumbles, the Indian economy might crumble. That's the reason it is very important for the government of India to support the MSME sector, and the government of India is supporting through financing, regulatory changes and technology support so as to make the MSME sector efficient, to enhance the productivity, and most importantly, to provide a market reach for the products the MSME sector manufactures. The first one is the credit guarantee scheme. Now, under the credit guarantee scheme, the MSME sector or the MSME industries can purchase machinery and equipment without providing any collateral. Without providing any security, the MSME sector can buy machinery and equipment. Why? Again, if the industries do not invest in technology, they are going to fall behind, right? So, in order to meet with the current trend and current demand, the government of India wants the MSME industries to buy equipments and take loan to buying equipments from banks, and they do not have to provide any collateral. Why? Because the government of India is taking the responsibility on behalf of the MSME sector. This will promote the technological advancement and productivity of MSME sector. The next one is the assessment model for MSME credit. There are many MSME industries that take loan from the banks. The government or the banks, they do not blindly give the credit to different MSME industries. They assess the worthiness of the MSME industries. But the problem is the public sector banks, they rely on the external assessment, and based on the external assessment, they decide if they have to dispense money to the MSME industries. What the government of India wants is the public sector banks to build in-house capability for credit assessment, which means there has to be in-house team which actually assesses the financial condition of the MSME industry or the worthiness of the MSME industry. So through this, the banks will understand the various needs and challenges the MSME sector is facing. Through this, the MSME or the public sector banks can cater to the tailor-made specific or tailor-made inputs from the banks to the MSME sector. So that's the reason the Government of India wants the public sector banks to have an inbuilt assessment team. The next is credit support during stress. Especially during times like COVID, when the MSME industries have to go through a lot of financial constraint, here the Government of India is planning to provide credit to the MSME. In order for the MSME industries to run the operations, the Government of India is providing credit to the MSME sector so that the MSME sector do not fall into the trap of non-performing assets. So, in order for the MSME sector to run the operations during difficult times, the Government of India is providing credit. So, this is about the manufacturing and services. Now, with respect to e-commerce export hubs, the Government of India is going to set up in public-private partnership mode the e-commerce export hubs. Now, through this e-commerce export hubs, the Government of India is going to build necessary infrastructure and support to the MSME industry. Now, in order to make the products of MSME industries efficient, the Government of India here will be investing in the e-commerce export hubs. This will help the MSME sector to reach or have the global access. At the same time, it is very important for the MSME sector or the prices of the products of MSME sector to be competitive. Only when they are competitive, they can reach the global market. And that's the reason the Government of India is investing in this e-commerce export hubs. Internship opportunities. Now here, the Government of India is providing internship to 1 crore youth over 5 years in 500 top companies. Now here, by providing internship in 500 top companies, the youth of a country will gain hands-on experience and practical skills. The practical skills they need in order to be a part of the employment sector or the industries. So by working in this 500 top companies, the skills that they are going to acquire will be top-notch. This will help in their future to get better job prospects. So this is about the fourth priority or fourth area that the Government of India has focused on. The fifth is the urban development. Now, the first one is the under urban development. The first one is the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Urban 2.0. Here, the Government of India is investing up to 10 lakh crore to fulfill the housing requirements and 1 crore urban poor and middle class families. So here, the Government of India will ensure that the housing that they will build will be affordable for the urban poor and middle class. The objective is to enhance the living conditions, to enhance the quality of life of people and to provide the people safe and secure home so that they enjoy a quality life. That's the reason the Government of India is building homes for the urban poor and middle class, and these homes will be affordable. The next is water supply and sanitation. Now here the Government of India is focusing on promotion of clean water supply, sewage treatment, efficient sewage treatment and effective solid waste management for 100 major cities. Now because of pathetic sewage and solid waste management system in our country, it leads to various diseases, right? And that's the reason the Government of India is planning to provide clean drinking water. At the same time, the Government of India is focusing on the sewage treatment as well as solid waste management project so that the areas are clean, these areas are not convenient for the disease to breed, and overall, the people should be in a position to enjoy a quality life. That's the reason the Government of India is investing in the water sanitation and supply, right? The next is street markets. Now here the Government of India will establish 100 weekly haats or street food hubs. Now, if you look at the street food vendors, the places where they operate, they are very, very unhygienic. So here the government of India is going to provide them a dedicated, spacious place wherein the street food vendors can operate their business, food stalls, keeping the area hygienic. Now this will attract the people and this will boost the local commerce and business, which is very important for India's economic growth. Why? Because a majority of the people are working in the informal sector. The next is the stamp duty. What is stamp duty? The amount that you pay to the government when you purchase a property. Now the problem with the stamp duty is the stamp duties are very, very high in our country. For example, if you're buying a house of, let's say, 1 crore rupees, like 15, 20 or 25 lakh of rupees, you're paying it to the government. So here, the central government wants the state government to reduce the stamp duty so that more and more number of people will buy the properties. Alright. And if the property is being purchased by women, the stamp duty will be further less. This will promote gender equality in property ownership and improve or empower the women of a country. So by reducing the stamp duty, the government of India is trying to stimulate the real estate market, as well as this will increase the property restorations. More the property restorations, more the revenue the government will earn. Right? And this will help in promoting inclusive urban development. Right? So, students, these are the 5 areas that we have discussed so far. First one was the agriculture. The second one was the employment and skilling. Third one was the social justice. Fourth one was the manufacturing. And fifth one was the urban development. Right? The next priority is energy security. Now here in the nuclear energy, the government of India is going to partner with the private sector. Why? For the research and development of these small and modular nuclear reactors. Now students, the reactors that we have in our country are large in size, are big in size, right? Now the problem with the big sized nuclear reactors that it is very difficult, it becomes very difficult to transfer from one place to other place. At the same time, there's a risk involved with respect to leakage of chemicals in the reactor. So here what we are trying to do is we are trying to develop small and modular reactors, which will be known as the Bharat small reactors. Now the advantages of developing small reactors is, one, it will help to transfer or the mobility will be quicker. Second, the catastrophic risk will be less. So compared to the big size reactors, if there will be a leakage in these small reactors, that can be managed. And third one, it's going to be cost effective. That's the reason the government of India is planning development of small and modular reactor. The next is with respect to solar power. Here the government of India wants to focus on Pradhan Mantri Surya Ghar Mufti Bijli Yojana, Muft Bijli Yojana. Here the purpose is to install rooftop solar plants for 1 crore households. So to all those people, 1 crore households, those who will be installing rooftop solar plants, they will enjoy 300 units of free electricity each month, which means through the solar plants, 300 units of energy will be free for these people. So this is actually an incentive for the people to install the rooftop solar plants. The next is the pumped storage policy. The government of India wants to promote this pumped storage projects for electricity storage. Now, what is this pumped storage policy? Now, for example, let me give an example. There are 2 reservoirs. One is located at a higher elevation. The other one is located at a lower elevation. So when the electricity demand is less, which means there's enough electricity in the, let's say, an area. Now the water will be transferred from this reservoir to this reservoir. Why? Because there is no much demand for electricity. There is already electricity, but the consumption is not as per the demand. So here we are going to transfer water from this reservoir, which is located at lower elevation, to higher elevation, which means here the electricity would be required. Now when the electricity demand would shoot up, right, the water which is located at this reservoir, located at higher elevation, the water will be released from this position to this position. Now, as the water gets released because of turbines, more electricity gets generated. This is the concept of the pumped storage, right? And Government of India wants to promote this pumped storage. The next is the advanced ultra supercritical thermal power plants. Now, under this supercritical thermal power plants, coal will be burned at higher temperature and pressure. That is 800 megawatt. What is the advantage? The advantage is that with the same amount of coal, we can generate more electricity. And this technology, indigenous technology, is also considered to be environment friendly. Why? Because this process releases less emissions as compared to the current technology that we are using. And then the Government of India is also providing financial assistance for energy audits to the MSME sector. The Government of India wants the MSME sector to move towards cleaner energy. Now, this provides the MSME industries to understand which are the areas or which points in their industries can be moved towards cleaner energy. And that is only possible when the MSME industry undergoes or has this energy audit. So, through the energy audit, the MSME industry would understand the area for adopting or moving towards cleaner energy. And for this, the Government of India is funding the MSME sector. The sixth is the energy sector. The seventh is the infrastructure, for which the Government of India has allocated 11.1 lakh crore. This is 3.4% of India's GDP. Now, the Government of India is going to start with the fourth edition of Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana, fourth phase. And under this, the Government of India will provide all-weather connectivity for 25,000 rural households. The next is the irrigation and flood control. Now, financial support will be given for the irrigation and flood control projects such as the Kosi-Mechi intrastate link. Now, we know that Kosi, because of the water flow or volume in the Kosi river, the region gets inundated, leading to flooding problems. So, what we are going to do is, under this project, the water during the floods, the water from the river Kosi will be transferred to other river. And for that, we have an interstate river linkage project through which water which is more in the flooding region will be transferred to arid region, right? The next is the tourism development, for which the Government of India is going to develop Vishnupad temple at Gaya, Mahabodhi temple at Bodh Gaya. Also, there are going to be holistic developmental initiatives at Rajgir, Bihar, Nalanda, as well as the Government of India is going to further focus on the natural landscape in Odisha, through which the Government of India wants to boost the tourism in these states, through which the economy of this state will also improve. Seventh was the infrastructure. Eighth one is the innovation and research and development, under which under the Anusadhan National Research Fund, very, very important. The Government of India is going to invest in the basic research. So, there are two things. One is the basic research, for which the Government of India is going to invest, and the other one is to develop the prototype. Now, before you use any innovation on a large scale, a prototype is developed. The prototype will be checked. Also, for the prototype, the Government of India will be funding to develop prototype, which is nothing but a sample. At the same time, the Government of India is also going to invest money in the private sector driven research, amounting to 1 lakh crore. The Government of India is also going to establish venture capital fund of 1,000 crore to expand the space economy. For example, space tourism, competition, like for example, as of now, we only have ISRO. Through this, the Government of India also wants the private sector to enter the space economy, so that there will be competition and there will be more innovation, as well as the services that the people of our country will get will be more in number, right? So, this will make our life more easy. And the last is the next generation reforms. Very, very important. Under this, the Government of India is going to focus on land reforms. That is, the Government of India wants to digitize all the land records that we have in our country. How? By giving a unique number to every land parcel. Every individual has an Aadhaar number. Similarly, every land parcel will have a unique identification number which is known by the name of Bhu Aadhaar for all the lands. The advantage of this will be, let's say, in case there are land related disputes, so this land records will be helpful to resolve the land disputes. It will enhance the transparency. All the land records will be at one place, so the land database will be created, right? The next is survey of map subdivisions as per the current ownership. As of now, the land records are outdated, so we do not know who is the current owner, which means now through this survey, the maps will be updated with the corresponding owner of the land. The next is the land records will also be linked to the farmers' registries. Now, the farmers' registries would include the name, gender of the farmer, the land area of the farmer, at the same time which crops, fertilizers is the land using. All this information will be provided in the farmers' registries. Now, linking the land records with the farmers' registries will help the government to target the intended beneficiary, right? And then we have this land records digitization in urban areas with GIS mapping. Now, through the GIS mapping, the satellites will capture the spatial data. Now, this spatial data will be very, very important for the urban planning, urban infrastructure, as well as to resolve any land-related disputes in the urban region. The next is the climate finance taxonomy. Now, what is this climate finance taxonomy? The government of India wants the investor to invest in projects which are environment friendly or which reduces the carbon emission. So, it basically classifies the economic activities and investments based on their economic impact. The purpose is that the investors should invest in projects or economic activities which are environment friendly or which reduces the carbon emissions. Next is the foreign direct investment. The purpose is to simplify the rules for FDI so that we get more fund flowing in our country. At the same time, we are promoting the Indian rupee. That is, we want the Indian rupee to be present, Indian rupee to be used in the trading related purpose. The next is new pension scheme. Now, we know what is new pension scheme. We contribute a percentage of the salary, and then after a specific tenure, that amount will be given to you. Now, one of the dimension or one of the aspect of this new pension scheme is the NPS Vatsalya plan, which you can, which is actually developed for the minors. For example, let's say I subscribe to this NPS Vatsalya plan, wherein I will actually be investing a certain amount of my salary on behalf of my child. So once my child reaches the age of 18 or once my child grows, that amount or that account will be linked or transferred to my child. So this is nothing but a method or strategy through which, or it is incentivizing people to invest, right? And the next is the tax related proposals. Though this is not related to the 9 priorities, but this is again important for you to understand. New tax regime, wherein the government of India has revised a new tax slabs. For example, here you see that 0 to 3, there will be no tax. 3 to 7, 5%, 7 to 10, 10%, 10 to 11, 15, 12 to 15, 20 and above 15, it is 30%. And under the new tax regime, there will be standard deduction of 75,000 rupees, right? At the same time, the government of India is also going to simplify the Income Tax Act of 1961. Why? So as to reduce the disputes and litigation. At times, the income tax provisions are quite confusing in nature, or there are many ambiguities. So in order to reduce the ambiguities, the government of India is trying to simplify this act. At the same time, the government of India is abolishing the angel tax. Now, what is angel tax? Let's say, for example, I start my own startup. Now, let's say a foreign investor or anyone has liked my idea. Now, this person wants to invest in my company, right? Mine is a startup. Now, the funding that a startup gets is known as angel funding. Now, back the government of India used to also tax this angel fund. Now, this year in this budget, the government of India has abolished the angel tax so as to boost the startups and ease investment, which means if there will be no angel tax, more and more people will be investing in the startups. The last is Vivad se Vishwas scheme. Now, when it comes to the income tax payers and the government, there are many disputes, right? For example, the income taxpayers have their own claim, the government has their own claim, and which leads or which takes the cases in courts. What the government of India is saying, let's have mutual trust. Vivad se Vishwas scheme. Let's have mutual trust and let's sort out this tax-related dispute by having mutual trust with each other, right? So this is the taxing-related proposals. So students, I think I have comprehensively analyzed each and every priority the government of India has focused on, right? Now, students, when it comes to, for example, agriculture, if you get a question on agriculture, you should be in a position to mention all the points that the government of India had introduced as part of budget 2024 in an examination, right? So make sure that you know each and every dimension that the government of India has focused as part of this budget, be it employment and skilling, be it manufacturing, be it social justice, schemes introduced for the eastern states, for the infrastructure development of the eastern states, right? So as to create balance, so as to fill the gap of the regional imbalance, right? So make sure that you are thorough with each and every priorities the government of India has focused, so that you will be in a position to attempt questions in the pre as well as the mains question. In the starting, I had discussed the type of questions that the government of or the UPSC asks in the UPSC examination, and that's the reason it is very, very important for you all to be very thorough with all the 9 priorities the government of India has introduced. I have given ample of time to explain each and every dimension the government of India has introduced, right? So now, students, let us try to understand a question that can be asked, that the UPSC might ask in the UPSC examination. So here the question is, discuss the significance and potential impact of developing a climate finance taxonomy in India. How can it contribute to the country's climate goals and sustainable development objectives? First, you need to understand what is climate taxonomy. We already have discussed what is climate taxonomy. It is a classification system to categorize economic activities and investment based on their environmental impact. The purpose is that the investors should invest in such economic activities which are environment friendly. Then you can focus on the significance of climate finance taxonomy, right? Here you need to explain the need for standardization in identifying and categorizing the green projects so that the investments will flow in. Then also discuss the role of transparency and comparability in these sustainable investments. Highlight how a taxonomy can facilitate capital flow, that is investments. Potential impact, economic impact, investments, environmental impact, reduction of climate emissions, social impact, creating sustainable communities. And then again, you can also align this with the national policies. For example, discuss how this financing or taxonomy finance can support India's NDC, that is nationally determined contributions under the Paris Agreement. Then support for international commitments, right? Explain how it meets in meeting the global climate targets, right? And then you can also link this with the Sustainable Development Goal, that is SDG 13, which is related to climate action. And then finally, you can highlight the importance of climate finance. Before that, you can also highlight few challenges in the developing countries, for example, with respect to regulatory hurdles and stakeholder alignment, right? And then finally, you can summarize the importance of climate finance taxonomy and try to highlight how climate finance taxonomy is very, very important to ensure sustainable, or to ensure that the investments that are flowing in is towards such economic projects which are environment friendly, right? So again, a such type of question can be asked in the UPSC examination. So students, again, make sure that you are revising all these priorities again and again so that you be very, very confident of attempting or using these points in your UPSC pre and mains answer. So that's it from our comprehensive analysis of Union Budget. Students, if you want us to continue with such initiatives, then please do like, share and subscribe Narayana IAS. Thank you so much.